Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Aylin, and today we're going to be going over how I annotate my books. So I wanted to make this video because I have kind of redone the way that I annotate my books. I've reassessed it and kind of come up with a system that works a little bit better for me, but I also have a few different systems in place, so in case one of these ways doesn't exactly work for you, maybe a slight variation of one of the other ways will work, and just kind of give you a jumping off point if you've never annotated before, or if you're kind of bored of your annotation system now. I just wanted to kind of do a few different things that I do. You can take what you want, you can leave what you want, no hard feelings. These are the things that work for me. And yeah, I have a few different books that I've annotated in different ways to show you, as well as one that I am currently reading right now. I forgot some supplies, so let me go get those and then we will fully dive in to how I annotate my books. Also, I plan on this video going up during Vlogmas, but I want to pre-film as much as I possibly can ahead of time. So this is being filmed during October, but just ignore it, pretend it's snow. You want to say hi? Nobody ever sees you because you're scared of the camera. Hi. Alright, so first I guess we'll talk about the way that I used to annotate, and I think, in my opinion, the most basic way. I will have as many of the products that I use linked in the description as possible, or at least the closest to them if the actual products are not available. We're going to talk about Kingdom of the Wicked first. This is a prime example of the most basic way that I annotate, and I have annotated using just like strips of paper and putting them in of like a sticky note if I didn't have the proper annotation supplies. So do whatever works for you. Pretty much done it all when I was figuring out how to annotate, and like I said, we're going to be working all the way up to what works for me now. So if you don't hear something that tickles your fancy right away, I would just say wait it out because we might get to something better. But for this one, I used these tabs that used to be, I would say, super popular in like 2019, and they don't make the arrow ones anymore. Unfortunately, I have looked to restock these because I thought that they were super easy to use. They don't really make them anymore, but they do have the square ones of this color set available, and they also have some better color sets available, which we'll get into, but what I use each one for. So for me, pink was a moment that I really loved because like pink I associate with like Valentine's Day, love, romance, etc. Orange and yellow I easily like swapped depending on the book that I was reading, so it could be something more related to that book, or if it was fantasy, maybe it was world building, things like that. And like yellow could be a moment that was a lot of foreshadowing, different things, or if it was making me nervous or I had an idea about where I thought the plot was going to go. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be foreshadowing, but while I was reading it, I wasn't sure, type of thing. Green is a moment that I like don't like, or characters making me mad or something like that. Blue is for sad, I don't know, feeling blue, sad. That was my train of thought. And then dark purple is for quotes that I really like, and the lighter purple is for funny moments. So with this specific set of annotation tabs, the way that I would annotate books like this, what was orange in this one? I don't even have a single orange tab in here, do I? No, but what was yellow? Oh, yellow was questions. I would use it for questions a lot because I'm not always great at picking out foreshadowing moments. The way that I would use these tabs to annotate, I went to Michael's actually and got the exact Stabilo annotation markers that match, oh my god, if I can hold them, the colors in this. So I literally went and matched, to the best of my ability, the colors for each of these sticky tabs, and then when there was something that I wanted to annotate and put a tab in for, I would go ahead and underline using that specific color. I would switch it out. Sometimes I would write in that color, and sometimes I would just take a black pen and write with that instead. For the romance in here, there's a tab and I underlined a little bit with this pink marker, wrote in black. I just thought that that was best and universal. And the way that I do it, I don't want to waste my tabs. So if I don't put a tab for everything. If there's a moment that I really want to underline, I'll underline it, because to me it's way easier to get those new pens than it is to potentially get these, since they're out of stock now. So I use those a little bit more sparingly, and I will underline a little bit more generously. And if it's a really important moment that I wanted to remember, I would stick a tab in addition to underlining it. But underlining was always like the first layer of annotating, and then the tab was like, this is big. So if that makes sense, hopefully that does. When I read A Court of Silver Flames, because it's such a big book and it is a fantasy, there are more books to come in the series, and I don't always have time to reread the first few books, especially when they're this freaking big in the series. The only change or modification that I added to my annotating system with this one, I actually got from Books with Chloe, and that was I would add a post-it note in there after about like every 50 pages, or if the end of a chapter was coming up around the 50-page mark, I would do it then. So this was on page 52. I did it because a new chapter started, and I would just summarize what I had read. So I went through and did that before I started reading, so that while I was reading, I saw that there and I could kind of just make the notes. And then when the time that the next book comes around, if I don't have time to reread this one, I can refresh my memory. It also makes it better for wrap-ups. It helps with reading comprehension, and it just kind of makes that easier so that I know what I'm talking about. I can flip through it easily, get the highlights, kind of get my own version of the cliff notes and what was important to me. I mean, I also have an entire video on this, but you kind of get the idea. If I'm not doing a dedicated review, that makes this easier. I also want to point out that I don't annotate every single book, and the way that I do it for poetry is significantly different than the way that I do it for novels and like stories. Okay, I filmed this part of the video separately because I was putting everything away, and I was like, it's gonna bother me that I did not talk about how I annotate poetry, and it's a really quick part that I can just say in 2 seconds, so I may as well grab the books, talk about it, and then I'll send you on your merry way with the rest of this video. So I have 2 Katie Wismer poetry collections here. I love Katie Wismer. I love her poetry. I think it's so well done. And the way that I annotated this, I could have done blue for this one, but I use blue tabs a lot, so I decided to go with purple because there's a tiny bit of purple in it. I just tab the poems that I'm obsessed with. Same for this one. I used yellow because there's gold, and that was what made the most sense in my head. If I really love a poem, I didn't do it in this one, I will tab it, and sometimes I will also dog ear the pages. I know that bothers some people, but I will dog ear pages every once in a while. I don't do it tons. I also do that in my like regular novels as well. There is a section that I really want to come back to and read like a whole paragraph from. I'll underline it and potentially dog ear it, especially if I had just put a tab on the page before it or something like that to remind myself that there's more good stuff on the next page. That is how I annotate poetry. I pick a color that matches the book the best, in my opinion, just a random color, and then those are the ones that I tab. So I just wanted to explain that. I didn't have new tabs when Reminders of Him came out, and I had seen that people were doing it to like kind of match the cover. So I did end up using tabs that matched the cover, but it was all still for what they had represented with my previous annotation system. There were things that made me mad. I just didn't put the tabs in because it didn't match. And these were the only ones that I had available to me. In this, there were moments that were like really significant quotes. There were things that I loved, things that made me sad, and also a couple of moments that actually made me laugh, even though this is such a sad book. Because this system had worked for me for so long and it was my tried and true, I didn't feel the need to put in like a key for the tabs for each book. However, when I read The Summer I Turned Pretty, because I used a different set of tabs, I did go ahead and do that. So there's just a key here with what each tab means, and I did it in the order of like how they were, so that if colors looked super similar, because I find that with the new tabs that I use, that can happen sometimes. it was a little bit easier for me to distinguish because they were just right in a row. That's kind of how I did this one. And instead of going out and getting a bunch more markers for all of these different colored tab systems, I was like, that is so much money and kind of a waste, honestly, for markers. So I'm not going to go ahead and do that for literally just one thing of tabs. It made way more sense when I had like 12 of these and this was the only thing that I was using, but for this, it doesn't make a ton of sense. I just use a black pen now to underline things. I also just like the way that it looks a little bit better, and I'll just write in the margins as well. So that's kind of how I do this, and I kind of make up the system as I go. A lot of things do stay the same, wherein I really like to highlight things that I love. I really enjoy underlining and tabbing things that make me angry, or for specific characters that I know are going to play a big role. I think especially with fantasy books that would be really helpful, is like using a color for like your favorite characters or something like that, your top 3 in this case, because you get 10 different colors. Or you can find different tabs, I'm sure, that have like more color selections within the tab thing, and make that work. Something else that I want to kind of jump back to with this, I would use this to make a straight line, and the way that I would do that, in case you're looking for a tip, because this is like tips and tricks and how I annotate and stuff, I would go like line this up underneath like the Y, the G, any letters that swing down, because they are kind of supposed to be even, and I would line it up that way because the paper doesn't always lay straight when you're holding it open. So that was kind of how I got a straight line. Sometimes my hand went off the rails and it didn't always work, but it worked way more than freehanding it did for me, so that's what I did. Like I said, I have a little bit more freedom with these kinds of tabs, so I'll just give you what my key was, because this is such like a similar book to something that happened in my life. I had one for nostalgia, I had a tab color for Jeremiah, one for Belly, one for Conrad. I had a color for when I was angry or annoyed, one for relatable moments, one for sad moments, and one for funny moments. And then I think there was a color that I didn't use at all, just because I wasn't sure what to use it for. That is kind of how I tabbed this one. Now we're on my current read and how I currently do this. And again, this is being pre-filmed for you guys so that I can post as much as possible in the month of December. But this is my current read and the current book that I am annotating, which I knew I wanted to annotate because I knew I was going to have thoughts, and I want to potentially make a like book talk for this book. So I'll show you the tabs that I decided to use. These were them, but these are the tabs that I decided to use, and again, I'll have these linked below. I just picked a variety pack, so you got a bunch of different 10 different color like selections, and you can kind of pick which one best matches the cover. And I think there were maybe like 6 or so of them in there, and I definitely want to get some more. I think that would be fun, have them continue to match. These also have a ruler on them, and you can stick them into like a binder or a planner or whatever. I don't do that, but you do have the option if you're going to use them for school or you're at school or whatever. My key for this, as of now, I haven't used all the colors yet because I feel like there are different things that I'm going to want to add in. Mild spoilers for It Ends With Us, because this is the sequel, but no spoilers for this. The main character, our main female, our heroine, if you will, standing up to her ex because he is a jerk. Her ex, being himself, aka a jerk, things that are funny. The hero and this really sweet relationship that he has with one of his co-workers' sons. They say he's his therapist, and they just have really sweet interactions that I love a lot, so I decided to make a tab for it. Interactions between our hero and our heroine that I really like and that I think are sweet and romantic. Things for quotes, and then parts that have me like really emotional or potentially crying. Those are the tab colors that I have so far, and I have just been underlining. And things like that. But something else that I am also doing with this is highlighting. I have a crap ton of these Tombow, what are they called? Water-based, like they're almost like watercolor brushes, but you use them like markers, and they don't bleed through at all, which is really nice. I have so many of them because I wanted to do a journal, like a reading journal, and use these because I saw a lot of people using them, and I suck at it, it turns out. I have a bunch of colors, but that works because now I can pretty much have one for whatever book I decide to read. And I really, really like them for that, especially like the lighter color ones so that you can still read the text. I was kind of choosing between the yellow and the blue, and subconsciously I chose blue. I've just been highlighting quotes that I think are really beautiful or that I want to pay closer attention to when I am flipping through the book. And I think it will also make it really pretty to take pictures of these quotes and like post them on Bookstagram. That is how I have been annotating. I think that even for me, I still use a mixture of this. So like for the Kingdom of the Wicked series, I want to keep that same method of annotating just because I want it to all be cohesive. So I'm going to probably go back and use these tabs for Kingdom of the Feared and Kingdom of the Cursed, and then also implement using post-it notes, like just the paper ones, for like every 50 pages or so in the series, because like I said, it makes it easier for book talks and things like that. Just for this last section of the video, I thought it could be helpful for my tips and tricks when annotating audiobooks or ebooks. So I typically will read on my Kindle and I'll just highlight sections, and then I'll go onto my Goodreads because it is automatically connected. I have them set to private just because some things are a little bit more private for me, and then I will just go on my Goodreads and transfer anything over when I have the time. When I'm listening to an audiobook and a quote starts, I'll go back, replay it so that I know exactly where it starts, and then bookmark that so that when I'm flipping through my audiobook, it will tell me which chapter, and maybe the chapter will be like one off or something, but I'll be able to find it, and then it will show me like in the listening kind of line, I guess that's there, on where you're at, if it's in the middle, beginning type thing. So I'll be able to flip through, kind of narrow it down a little bit easier, and then highlight it from there, and I'll hear the whole quote onward. That is kind of how I annotate or transfer annotations, and I'll just use one of the systems that I have. I typically won't do like the every 50 pages thing if I'm listening to an audiobook. I just thought I would share how I annotate. I've never done one of these videos before, so I hope that it was helpful. I know I don't have the most unique annotating system, but I do have a few variations that work for me, so I wanted to share it. Let me know how you guys annotate, if it's any different than what I said, or if any of this was helpful and you want to take some of these things and make them your own. Totally fine. Honestly, an honor. That's it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I hope you found it helpful. I hope you're doing well reading mentally and otherwise, and I really hope to see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.